Hey everyone, welcome to our nameless podcast so far. We don't have a name for this podcast yet, but we are people who do not let perfection and everything having to be lined the same way stop us from starting. So I am your co-host, attorney Dayna Thomas, and this is my lovely co-host, Dr. Roshawnna Novellus. And this podcast, although nameless right now, is about really tapping within to the power that you have, sharing the magic that we have discovered that we have through candid conversations between two really good friends.
I know that one thing that we believe in is that our environments really create or help to create the person that we are, the energy that we feel, and kind of how our world is perceived through our eyes. So tell me your take on environment and how environment is so important, because for me, I see that in relationships, I see it in, friendships, where you live, where you work. What's your experience been about the different environments that you've been in and how it's taken a toll on your magic?
Yeah, you reminded me of when I read The 4-Hour Work Week, and he said that wealth was deciding what you do, when you do it, where you do it, and with whom. So environment is where. And where you do something is very important, as you mentioned, because it can affect your frequency, your happiness, your access to things that you like. And when I was over living in DC, I said, hey, I need to live in a different environment. And I decided to move to Atlanta. I tested it out by myself, but it didn't work out, and it was much easier. I was like, I want to live in a place where I could be happy walking down the street by myself, even if I didn't know anybody. And Atlanta gave me that.
Well, that's awesome. I think environment is so important. I think it translates. So it is the where we are, but also our environment is also who we let in our space. I am so protective over my environment, and growing up, I didn't realize how important that is. But once I decided to do something like big and hard, like starting my business, I started to realize so many things matter outside of just knowing how to do business, outside of just marketing. Things that seem unrelated, like who you let in your space, even when you're hanging out, when you're relaxing, having nothing to do with business, has an effect on your business. And of course, your business is a huge role in kind of like your life, right? I am so particular about that, and I think that over time, I have strengthened my spirit as it relates to discerning kind of who should be, who shouldn't be, all that stuff. So, and one thing that's easy for me is kind of cutting people out. So tell me about that for you. Or can you cut people off if you feel like it's not meant for you, or how does that affect you?
So I'm a very loyal person. I'm a Cancer, so I believe that love and relationships should last forever, but there's a pain threshold. I also don't believe that I should endure a lot of pain.
Right.
And so I've gone through a lot of stages in my life where I had to kind of grieve cutting people off. Like, I'm not the kind of person who could just cut people off and forget about them. Like, they're in my soul and my spirit if I really love them, and I really love people deeply. And so some of the times when I'm having ebbs and flows, it's because I'm going through this grieving process. So I know I'll need to grieve, and I'll make myself cut them off, but those feelings linger. And a lot of my nostalgia time is thinking about some of those long lost relationships. And over the years, I've just tried to reduce that nostalgia time to something that's more reasonable, that still can feed my loving soul, but also enables me to think about the present moment and what I'm bringing in my future by changing the environment.
Yeah. So that's so funny. I'm different. I do not mind cutting people off. And it doesn't have to be like in the meanest way either. I don't do it in a mean way, but I also realize that some people I don't owe an explanation. Like if it's someone I'm dating and maybe went on 2 or 3 dates or not even that much, I don't feel like I owe you an explanation. Do you give people an explanation? Like if you're dating them, maybe like 2 dates, 3 dates, and you have to cut them off because I mean,
Yeah,
I don't,
but the
then again, I've been
explanation,
cutthroat.
the explanation is like, I don't think we're in alignment. I wish you love, happiness, and continued blessings. Ashe. That's the
Yep.
explanation. That's
I
enough.
don't even do nothing. I just stop talking. There was one person that said to me, because I told them how I am, how I'm very protective over my space. And that's the thing. People don't believe you when you tell them that. But I told them from the beginning, I'm very protective over my space. Like, I feel like there's certain things that you should just not do, right? I don't believe in second chances for many, many things. And I guess, you know, people don't believe you and they do whatever they do. But he said, you know, he asked me, like, please, like, if you're going to cut me off, just tell me so that I know. So that one person who really asked me to tell them, I told him. And we had lunch and I just told him the reasons, you know, because he asked me to. So I will, you know, in that case. But I just don't want to spend any more time or energy on it because it matters so much to me.
That's so funny. Like, oh, I'll give you a debrief if you want. You want an exit interview? I love it.
Yeah, I did.
The exit interview is not required, though.
No, it's not. And I won't always grant it. And it's so funny because he was like, I know that it's really over because you paid. Like, I paid. That was the first time that I paid. So he was taking his, I was like, no, I got it. Like, this is not a date. Please don't be confused. I am not giving you another chance. You know?
If you ever catch me paying, I have no romantic interest in you whatsoever.
Well,
and I want to make sure that you know that there's no future romantically. That's what it means.
That is the point. Exactly. That is the point. Like, this is not a date. I'm not giving you another chance. Like, keep your money. I got this. But yeah, that matters so much. So have there been people in your life, like tell a story about like when you realize, how do you know, right? That's a good question. How do you know when it's time to cut someone off, right? Because at times you feel like, man, I should fight for relationships, whether that's friendships or it could be hard relationships like with your parents or, you know, a significant other, whatever it is, because there's a battle between, do I fight for this relationship, right? Do I compromise? Or is this in the category of being toxic and do I let that go so that I can flourish?
So over the years, I started embracing a habit where I document how I feel like around certain people. So how do I feel like leading up to him? So if we're going to go to a festival, am I excited that I have someone to be with at the festival, but I'm also nervous that I might be embarrassed at the same time, but like I'd rather go with someone than not go. So I'm going to just take a chance. And then when I'm there, am I embarrassed? Do I feel like I could be by myself? Do I feel like I'm getting teased? Do I feel like where in the like frequency scale are the feelings? And then when I leave, am I relieved? Do I leave early? Am I like, oh, I'm out? I had enough. It's not worth it anymore. Or am I like, oh, I never wanted to end. I can't wait to the next time. And I have to do this whole convincing myself. So when I was in my 20s living in DC, I was in a group of like 30 people and I did not like 80% of them, but I spent like every Saturday and Sunday with them, maybe 2 nights after work. And I was like, oh, this is the most people I've ever known, but I couldn't stand them. And I thought they were like petty and juvenile. And I was just like so beyond them. But I liked the fact that
you were going
out, I was in this good
out.
social group and they always knew all the things to do. And so, but eventually I said it wasn't worth it. And I was alone for a time. And that happens to me over and over in my life. So I have to grieve one friendship. But what happens when I let a friendship go or a relationship go, whatever comes in next is better. Like it's never gotten worse for me. 100% of the times it's better. So that's what happens. Yeah.
Awesome.
And what about you?
In terms of, I forgot the question.
The question was like, how do you
question.
like your own question of cutting off like any kind of relationship in that process?
How do you know? Okay.
And
so,
how do you know?
How do I know? I know when I feel like discomfort. So the thing for me is, it's so weird because I internally, like, I don't like to be uncomfortable. But the thing is, I know that discomfort in some ways leads you to like your glory because it helps you to be better. Like I can feel it, right? So I feel a discomfort when it's toxic, when it's not supposed to be like this, when I'm walking out of God's will, that feels one way. And then I feel a different discomfort when it's like, man, like, I know if I get through this, like, I will just, reach the glory or, reach this goal, whatever it is. So those two discomforts, I'm really using them differently. So I'm talking about the first discomfort that I talked about, where it feels like it's toxic and it's on my mind and I can't sleep. Like, I don't like living like that. I think that's why I became an entrepreneur in the first place, because I did get a taste of being an employee and being scared to call out of work and being scared to take off a vacation. I'm like, I don't want to live my life like that. This feels crazy, right? So I think I built my life avoiding discomfort. And so when I start to feel like a relationship with someone is just working me up, is getting me, consistently uncomfortable, it's making me upset, right? With that person, I'm arguing, right? I do not argue. Like, I do not even that I don't like to argue, I don't argue. And people take that as like me walking away or me running. I don't care what you take that as. You could take that as whatever you could tell yourself, whatever. Yes, tell yourself whatever story that makes you feel comfortable, because I'm not about to argue with you. So I feel like if people are bringing me or making me become a person that I don't want to be in this world, that's when it's time to cut them off. Because I will not.
Yeah, and that made me think about working in corporate America. I hated it. And mostly because of what you said, how being uncomfortable and you can't get out of the situation. So I unfortunately had to deal with a lot of sexual harassment at all the firms. Like, my first job, out of 800 engineers, there's only 3 women. And I was the only woman under 40, and I was 18 when I started. So it was me, 22 years. Do you know how much like harassment I received? And I worked there 3 years.
Oh my gosh. Were you the only black woman too, or was there?
Yeah, it was 2 older white women who were more masculine in nature, and I'm, super feminine, and I was a teenager. Like, I started really early when I was 18, and it was just like, and I was like, I just want to work on these engineering problems so people stop bothering me, right? And those kinds of things happened at different environments. But even beyond that, like, when you're dealing with people in those environments, there could be jealousy, there could be sabotage. People want to make sure they stand out more than you to scale up the corporate ladder. And I was always promoted very quickly. For anyone who knows me, you know that I can execute. I have extremely good work ethic. So I always do everything like to the best of my ability. So at every company, I was just promoted so fast. And then that was a whole other thing. Like, I would have to like try to make myself do stuff slower so that I can fit in with my coworkers.
And they won't be so mad that you're so awesome.
And they won't be so mean to me. And I just want them to be nice. Can y'all just be nice and love me? I just so happen to be a sweetheart who's really good at execution. That's it. Like,
they need help, and I think that's one thing that has helped me is like learning about people, especially through my spirituality. Like, a lot of people are lost, right? Or they're in a place where they're uncomfortable, and it doesn't matter what age they are, right? They're at a place where they're uncomfortable, because I can imagine the corporate world in tech can be super, super stressful, right? And especially for people like them who have families and they're trying to balance with this, and they have, potentially financial situations going on. I can imagine how stressful that is, and they don't really realize the pressure that they're putting on you, but you being kind of new to adulthood, expecting like, okay, I'm here, I'm doing great, because you achieved something so high at a young age. But it's just like, we really quickly realized that we cannot seek any acceptance or joy or anything from other people. At all.
Right. And I was going through something this weekend, and that was the point right there. Like, third party external validation only makes you either a slave to that validation or sad. One or the other, but like happiness, joy, contentment, all of that is found within and in alignment with God, right? That's the answer. So let that go. And sometimes we forget. I forgot for a second, like, why didn't this person invite me here? Why didn't this person da-da-da-da? And I was like, in my feelings, I was like, wait, that's not how you be happy. You create the life you want.
Exactly. And you know what else? I'm not mad at people for their choices, So that's the other thing. I totally respect people for their choices, whatever their choice might be, to invite me, to not invite me, to be my friend, to not be my friend, to whatever the situation is. So if someone makes a choice that maybe like I would have chose something different. Like, that's okay. This is your life. You choose whatever you think is going to be best for you, because I, for damn sure, am going to do what I want to do. And that is something that I know about myself. And I don't want to be a hypocrite and say, like, I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. But then when somebody else does what they want to do and I don't like what they do, then I'm judging them or I'm upset at them. Like, you will never catch me upset at anybody for any of their choices, because at the end of the day, they have to live with it, right? And a lot of times, me as a business coach, the things that frustrate me a little bit are the people that I care so much about and they have big goals and they want to do this or do that, but they're held back because of fear, and it's just like, I have to catch myself and say, listen, I can't be mad at this person for not stepping out on faith or not believing in themselves more, because that's the choice that they're making right now, and whenever the time is right, I do believe that, they'll make that choice, but I have to remind myself of that too. And I think I've grown a lot in that, and just not being upset at people for their choices.
There's so many topics that came to my mind when you're just speaking. So one is the whole concept of fear. I remember I was having happy hour with one of my girlfriends, and she said one of the biggest disservices that people give to women is to tell them that they could let go of fear. And she said it's impossible. You can maybe accept discomfort, but you're always going to be afraid. And she was saying that thinking that you can be a fearless person is such an illusion that women waste their time trying to embrace.
Fearless.
And I was like, what? I had never ever heard of this concept. And so, what do you think about her response?
I agree, because, especially like from a biblical standpoint, which I'm speaking from now, it doesn't say that we're not going to be fearful or we're not going to be uncomfortable in many situations. We're going to be scared to do the amazing things. And you probably heard this before. If your dreams don't scare you a little bit, then they're not big enough. Right. So if we only reach for what makes us comfortable, or we only reach for what is not scary, then we are really doing ourselves a disservice, because we have all this time to live, God willing, right? And to only do what you're not scared to do, that will severely limit you. So I think that fear is inevitable. It's necessary. Sometimes what we're scared of is probably what we should be doing, because that might be our biggest breakthrough, right? So if we're going through life and we're not scared, and a lot of times that's the people who are going to work from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, fighting traffic, this and that. They're not scared because they know how much they're going to get paid. They know when they're going to get paid. They know when a bonus is due. That's not scary, right? But a lot of those people are unhappy, right? But what is scary is to really take that leap of faith and do what you really want to do, what you're passionate about. That's scary. You don't know how much you're going to make. You don't know what clients you're going to get. But that's really the story of just about every single successful person, is that they did it scared.
Right. And going back to the environment, I remember when I first started my entrepreneurial journey, and I would kind of share some of the uncertainties that I was dealing with. And most of the people around me at that time were so afraid, like, oh, I would just get another job, or I would just do that. So like everyone's response was like, it's over, pack up shop, go back to where you came from. But now it's funny, like when I express like uncertainty, like everyone around me is like, oh yeah, it's gonna work out, you're gonna figure it out. If I can believe in anyone, I believe in you. It's so different. Like everyone just understands that, like, I'm gonna figure it out.
In the beginning, it was not like that,
It was not like that.
They was like, what are you doing? Like, you're gonna start your law firm right out of law school? Why don't you work somewhere for 5 years, save up your money, buy a house first, whatever it was? And I'm like, no, because if I did it that way, I would be stuck, and I don't want to be stuck. Because if I'm setting up my life based on a 6-figure salary that I'm getting from this corporate job, then how in the world am I just going to pick up and quit to, become an entrepreneur? That is hard, but nobody believed it at first. Like, why are you doing this? How are you going to do that? How are you going to get clients? You shouldn't, right? So it's so important that people cancel out the noise. Like, I feel like other people's opinions are noise, and of course there's certain people that you seek for guidance and things like that, but you really have to be particular in who you're seeking guidance from. Has that person done what you're trying to do, or did they do the complete opposite, and try to steer you in that direction? So, but now it's a different story. It's like, no one doubts. If I say I want to go do this, they're like, awesome, you're going to do it. You know, let me know when you're celebrating.
You also made me think right now about how when like marketing agencies and branding agencies want something creative and innovative, they go to the younger generation because they're not as brainwashed yet.
Yep.
The reason why it's harder to be creative as you get older is not because you're less creative, it's because you're used to just letting go of all these like outlier opinions and then just doing the same routine over and over again. And as an engineer, I know I had to spend a lot of time like letting go of this formulaic approach because that may work in corporate, but it doesn't work in this intuition, creative, entrepreneurial economy. And so I just wanted to tell that to people who are like very logical and have been in corporate for a while. Like you can, you know, open your mind and lean more into intuition, but it may take some time to get there. And that's okay. It took me some time.
Absolutely. And, you know, so let's talk about realistic. You know, what people say, oh, that's not realistic. I don't like that, you know, because I'm like, what's not realistic? Like all things, because you haven't seen it be done, right? That is not realistic. And I think that's something that holds us back because sometimes when I'm speaking to someone and I'm being positive and they're like, what if I lose my job? Or what if this happens? Or what if that happens? And I'm like, don't think about that. Plan for the best. Don't plan for the worst, right? And then their response is, well, I have to make sure that I have this and I have to make sure that this, and if I lose my job tomorrow or if this happens. And I understand both perspectives because on one end, it is scary to not prepare if something happens, if you lose your job or if this or if that. But I guess my faith is just so strong in the fact that we really do have the power, you know, and to some people it sounds like craziness, you know, and
yeah, and that concept is mentioned again and again in so many books. And I understand because as a financial planner, as someone is very good with money, I always had all these projections and plans and all that. But when you're trying to do something that's not like a 9-to-5 or that's very structured, your intuition and your vibration has the largest effect. So if you plan for the worst, usually the worst is going to happen. So usually what will happen is the worst that you plan for. So if you're saying, hey, the worst I'm going to get from doing this campaign is $1 million, but the best is 10 million, you probably get close to $1 million. But if you like the worst I'm going to get is 0, nobody's going to buy anything. That's probably what's going to happen. And I know there's been several times in my life where I wouldn't let myself think of any worst case scenario that was something I wouldn't accept.
You don't even want it in your mind. It's like there's no
the worst case scenario was an acceptable scenario.
Yep.
Just a little bit less than the out of this park scenario. And every single time I was like, nope, this is the baseline of expectations. I got that.
Yep. And you know what else? Sometimes when we think of doing something amazing and we think of the worst case a lot of times really isn't that bad. You know, so like, for example, right, it might be a little embarrassing, right? It might be hurt your feelings a bit, but it's really not the worst, especially what the worst can be for some people. So for example, when I was starting my business, the worst case scenario would be that if it didn't work, then I would move to Florida, live with my grandmother, and she would cook for me all day, right? She'd cook, she'd clean, like I'd have, you know, Caribbean dishes for me all the time. And I would just start over like that. I wouldn't have to pay any rent. Like I would just start over. That is the worst case scenario. Yeah, that might be a little embarrassing. I tried to do this. It didn't work out. But you know what? I'm not dead. I'm not on the street. I have a meal. I'm with my family, you know? So even though it's like, yeah, that's not so good, but it really ain't the worst. And when you compare it to what could happen, right, which is what has happened, it becomes successful and you become, you know, influential to other people and it leads to other businesses and you become an author and you have a show and, you know, you get to inspire other people and help them with their business, right? That is worth the risk. So I think sometimes people need to think about like, what's really the worst case scenario? Is it like harmful to you or is it just embarrassing, right? So what? Who cares what people think? Like, Who cares what people think? I think that's something that I really want to preach to the world. It really doesn't matter. What do you think about that?
But it's also what you think.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to think that you could only have success if you work 12 hours a day. And a lot of people push that narrative.
Yes.
Like,
Yep.
if you're not working, you sleeping or you failing or something. There's so many phrases like that, but it's not true. I just remember how like people didn't really like me when I was working around the clock like that because I was miserable and unhappy. So like I was like, okay, I'm not working. Now I have nothing to do for fun because I didn't have any friends.
Right.
And then once I was like, okay, this is the limit, you know, fun is more important than that last little extra 10% of work. And then my life started to change.
Yep.
And so it's really important to know and understand that like your prosperity, your happiness, and just your overall control of your environment success comes from a lot of different sources and not just grinding.
Right. And we need to tap into the power that we really do have, right? We are children of God. We have that power. And when we try to do it in our own strength, doing what you said, like working 12 hours a day and doing what everybody else is doing and, you know, not sleeping. And if you're getting a good night's sleep, then you're probably, you know, not working hard enough. Like I totally don't subscribe that. That is when you are really not tapping into the full power of what you have and you're trying to do it in your own strength. Right. So we have more power than people really tap into. And it really starts in your mind. Right. Which is a part of the reason why we're even having this podcast is to expose people, right, to the power of your mind, to the magic that we really do have so that we don't have to struggle and you don't have to work as hard as people have traditionally worked as hard to get what they have. Do you have to work? Absolutely. Right. A lot of times we have to do more than other people are doing, but not more in the traditional ways, right? Like what I've mentioned before, everything you're doing matters.
Yeah, I remember one of the reasons I work so hard in DC is that I love going to the opera and I love having box seats to the opera. So I work to have a season pass. Yes, I like the VIP treatment, like clearly. And I wanted to work in order to buy those tickets and have that kind of experience. But then I moved to Atlanta, and Atlanta is the land of, hey, do you want to go? So I was invited to so many galas and concerts and experiences that I never had to pay for when I moved here. And I had this aha moment, like, yes, there's one way, is that grinding mode to get to this experience. Or that this other mode, and I'm like, why did these people invite me? Oh, because they enjoy my company. I actually hang out and network with a lot of different people and volunteer with a lot of people. And there's a lot of like overlap in the work that I do with people in this space. And I have the same lifestyle in terms of the end result, which is going and having this VIP experience as I did but I had more fun this way. And I liked it. I preferred this way.
And that's why it's so important. But you know what? It's because of the way that you treat yourself, right? So treating yourself that way, meaning understanding that work-life balance is so important and most of your day does not have to be work, and having a good time doesn't mean that you're, you know, not being responsible with your work, prioritizing your joy and really, you know, letting the light within you flourish and shine. People are attracted to that, right? If we're spending all day grinding, doing things that we don't want to do, right? That is what's going to permeate as well. And people don't want to be around that. So, yeah, that's so true. I realize that if I don't have good work-life balance, like I'm not happy, right? And I totally don't subscribe to having to work like a dog in order to be successful. Yes, there's going to be times where I'm grinding. So for example, if I have like a launch coming up or something, oh yeah, there's times I'm working during the day. I put my son to sleep and I'm working at night because the launch date is coming up. I got to get these sales funnels together, right? And I'm tired. There's been times where I went to the altar at church because the altar call was, who needs rest? And I'm like, oh my God, I need rest. Like I'm so tired. And I've done all of that before for a launch, but that is for a season. I don't build my business around seasons like that, right? So it's so important that you build your business around your lifestyle and not your lifestyle around your business. So how many days do I want to work? Okay, or how many hours do I want to work? Let me build my workflow so that I can only work 4 hours a day or 5 hours a day. That means I'm going to need people, right? Let me go and make sure that I, put a job description together, start hiring for the expectation. So work-life balance to me is everything. And I've seen people teach it differently. Like, you have to grind all the time. And if you're getting a good sleep, people say to me all the time, like, you must not sleep. But I'm like, I actually sleep very well.
Yeah. And I remember this concept has so many different sources, but when I was getting my teacher certification for yoga, I studied karma yoga, and it was the way that you're supposed to structure your life is similar to what you said. So how much time do you want to spend with your family? How much time do you want to spend on hygiene, self-care, eating food with loved ones, and like giving to the world? Mm-hmm. After that, and sleep, right? After that, that's how much time you have left to work. The work was part of the thing,
yes.
But that was the part that you had to, that's how you structured your schedule for the optimum amount of happiness. And the work part was never zero because, but all of those other parts were great. And then on another point, like, I've been asking a lot of people, like, how many hours a day is optimal to spend with your family? And almost everyone said 2 hours, but it's really hard to spend 2 hours with your family.
2 hours?
And I was like, wow, like out of 24 hours, it's a stretch. And it's like, why can't you spend 2 hours with your family? Because of work. And I was like, you do all of these things for your family,
exactly.
For the people you love. And like 2 hours is a stretch. And it just has blown my mind.
Especially when you have kids, yeah. No, that is crazy. So since I've relocated, I wanted to have different hours, right? So my son gets out of school at 3:30. I want to be done with work by 3 o'clock. So I could be there at 3:30 all the time, because before I would work until about 5:30. He'd be home at 6, and his bath time is at 7. So we have 1 hour for like dinner and time together. And I knew, like, that is not the life. That is not why I did all this for. So now in my new location, I stop work no later than 3 o'clock. I start at 10. I was talking to my mom, right? And she's like, oh, and my mom is very supportive, right? But we're just kind of discussing it, and it's new to her. So she's like, that's not enough time to work, because she wants me to make money, because it makes them feel more secure when we're, as their children, self-sufficient, right? So my parents want me to make money, right? And I'm like, money is there. More money will even come. And she's like, you need to start work earlier. And I'm like, I'm not starting work earlier, because if I start work early, I'm going to be unhappy. So that is it. And I'm like, I'm not working later because I'm not cutting into the time that I have with Cam, right? I want to come home and we can chill and watch TV together, or we can go outside and ride his bike, or, if we want to go to a store or do something, we have time to do that. We can sit down, I can cook. And I didn't have that before, So yeah, it's like 5 hours to work. But let me tell you something, during those 5 hours, I am in the zone. I'm getting it done. It has 100% of me, So I think people need to take from this, decide what you want your life to be, decide what you want your schedule to be. Don't be scared that it's not going to work. You just have to be very intentional with your day. Be very intentional with your time. Give it your all when you are working, and when you're with your family, give your family your all. There's going to be times where it is different, when you're working on a launch, or you're working on a new goal where you do have to work at night, or where you do have to start an hour earlier. But that doesn't have to be your norm. So definitely build your business around your lifestyle. Don't build your lifestyle around your business. Would you agree, Roshawnna?
I totally agree. And I personally, I'm in a season right now where I'm spending more time in learning mode. And so I've added up more hours to my schedule, and it's given me a little anxiety. So I'm trying to navigate how I can still show up and work the amount of time that I would like to work and remain calm. Because if I'm having anxiety or calm and like not happy, like that's not the point. Then, like you said, you don't want to do it anymore. It's like, why am I doing all that if it's not fun anymore? So the objective is to figure out with yourself how much fun you could have while achieving new goals, right? And maybe some of my existing goals will have to be diminished a little bit. And I don't like to diminish my goals. I'm doing this is my cadence kind of person, but in this phase of my life, happiness is more important than the cadence.
Absolutely. And sometimes we think like we have to do it all at once. Like there's so many things that I want to do. Like I have 4 businesses. Of course, like I cannot focus on all of them at the same time. And when I have tried, nothing gets done. But I have to constantly remind myself, Dayna, you are 33 years old. Oprah is not 33. She did not reach the prime of her life at 33 because I compare myself, not really compare myself, but like I get inspired by people like Oprah. I get inspired by people like, Steve Harvey, who has overcome a lot of things to where he is now, right? So, but I'm like, I'm 33. I'm comparing myself to people who are in their 60s, or I will be there, right? This is the time. So, I just have to remember that I don't have to do it all right now. Take one piece at a time. As long as I feel like I'm in God's will and I'm where I'm supposed to be and I'm helping people and I'm constantly moving forward, I think that has helped to give me peace because people like us, we know the power we have and we want to see that like right now, But, if we take a second to just, take one goal at a time and focus on that so that we don't feel so overwhelmed during the day, that helps a lot.
Yeah. And with this power and magic, we understand that we don't have to do everything ourselves. It was funny. Like last night, I just said something to God and then you texted me right after that with what God, the conversation that I had that I needed. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh, okay. So God was like, dude, I'll take care of this. I was like, okay. So sometimes, again, it's not like you have to do the thing. And I remember even when I started my startup Enrich Her, like I told all these people what I was going to do. Like 6 people told me, hey, I'll volunteer 10 hours a week to help you get to that next place. And I didn't ask them to do it. They just offered and they did it.
If you build it, they will come.
And I was like amazed that people would dedicate their time to a vision that I had. So it's really important sometimes to not make the plan so detailed that you don't leave room for God to fill in the gap.
Absolutely. Yep. And not stop yourself because you don't see all the pieces, right? Yep. Because sometimes people don't start because they can't see all the steps to get to the finish line of where they want to be. You're not going to see all of the steps, right? Because he hasn't revealed it to you yet. It's something that you can't even imagine. So one time, like when I was starting my business, I'll tell a quick story. I was $30,000 in credit card debt when I first started my business because I didn't have the money. I just got out of law school, but I was like, that's not going to stop me. Like I'm going to take out these credit cards and I use those credit cards on things to build the business, right? Or even just like sometimes it was bills, sometimes it was clothes when I was going to events. Sometimes it was like courses that are very expensive, 3, 5. I even did a $10,000 course, right? Which was the bulk of where that came from. Could I have even imagined how I was going to get that paid off when I decided to use credit cards as a way of funding my life when I decided to do something so great? No, I didn't know how I was going to get paid off. I thought it was going to be my business or whatever it was, but I didn't let that stop me. Turns out a distant relative, right, lent me the money and I didn't even ask. It was like another relative who reached out to them because that person had recently, I guess came into some money or I don't even know how it happened. And they ended up giving me the $30,000. I paid off the credit card and then we had a contract about how I was going to pay it back. And I paid it back in like maybe a year, maybe a little over a year. I was paying $1,200 a month and my business was making the money. You know what I mean? Right. So I could have never thought that a distant relative would come and give me $30,000 to pay off my credit cards. You can't plan for stuff like that, but you still have to be obedient and take that leap and utilize the resources that are available to you. Because if you just say, I'm not going to take out credit cards, I'm scared and what if my business don't work and I can't pay it back? If I did that, I wouldn't have any money to fund my business. I wouldn't even be here right now in the way that I am,
And you never know what resources God wants you to use. So a lot of times when we think if I do this, then that, like you just said, we're not fully grasping everything at our disposal. It's wonderful to have access to capital and the credit cards. And as we know, every billion-dollar company has taken out tons of loans. So thinking that you have to like do it all yourself is just, that's not how you grow any companies. And I know that a lot of times with financial planning, they don't even educate to how like business grows.
Yes. That is such a great point. Oh my gosh. That is such a great point, because that conference that I was telling you that was $10,000, like they were talking to us about all the companies that started off of credit cards. You are so right, because when people think about like the businesses that are successful, those businesses started off borrowing money, credit cards, personal loans, however they could get money to fund their dreams. That's how it happens. They didn't work for someone and be so unhappy until they saved $50,000 so they could put 25 of it into their business. It did not. And then when they ran out of money, they got a part-time job. Like, no, you have to believe so much in your vision that it's like, if people don't believe, that's okay, right? I'm going to borrow, I'm going to get whatever resources that I need because I know it's going to work. And it works, you know. And if it doesn't work, that's okay too, right? You start over, or maybe you have a different vision, whatever it is, right? But I truly believe that if you put your all into something that you feel called to do for the right reasons, that it will work, right? And don't think about anything else outside of that. Just make it work, period.
You inspire me today. I'm thinking about all the stuff I'm called to do.
Yes. And that's the difference, right? Because we have to realize what's motivating us, right? Do we want to be an influencer because we want so many eyes on us, or we want to be popular and this and that? Or do you want to be an influencer because you have a testimony to share, right? Or you learn something that you want to teach other people, because if they learn this lesson, their lives could be so much better, right? What is motivating you? Because if it's the first, you just want popularity and eyes on you and this and that, I don't know. I don't have answers for that, right? I don't know, right? If it don't work, I don't know. But the other way, and where you feel really called and you want to be in front of large audiences because you feel like you have something to share and that can help people so much, and you've been through all the things that you've been through and you know that you came through it to help other people, that will not fail. That will not fail, right? Because it's coming from the right place. So you just have to, like, not you, but like people have to like dig deep inside themselves and like, what is motivating me to want this, you know?
Right. And I remember I was also told by several different entities that I'm supposed to be on camera and I'm supposed to deliver like messages to the masses. And I was like, well, I'm an introvert. Like, how am I supposed to do that when that's not my comfortable spot? But they're like, you're supposed to. Then I got all the analytics behind it because, you know, I'm a scientist. So whenever I'm on camera, like my conversion rate is so high. I was like, oh, okay. So then I had to figure out. Yeah, so I received that confirmation, but at that point in time, I had to figure out how to let go of my discomfort. And so I took acting classes, improv classes, commercial acting, so that when I'm on camera now, I don't feel any kind of way. Before I was sweating and all like drenched. But because I had so much anxiety, and now I love it. I love being on camera. I love it. I'm so glad that people told me this. Huh?
Why? I keep wondering why you keep calling yourself an introvert. Like, I can't believe you just let that. No, you're not. You are not an introvert. Because everything that you just said is normal, and that happens to me too. When I definitely know I'm not an introvert. However, but the thing is, everything that you like kind of explain the features of like you being an introvert, I experienced that. Like, I get nervous before I get on stage. Like, I start sweating before whatever. Like, and I don't honestly, like, I don't want to speak a lot of the time because I don't want to feel that feeling of nervousness. Not because I don't have something to say, right? I do have something to say, and I know whatever I can say is going to be helpful to people, but I hate that feeling of nervousness. So I don't know what you're basing it off of, because me being your friend and knowing you, I have not seen a sign of any introvertedness at all, because we get discomfort, you know, we get uncomfortable in front of stages, and it's the potential for people to judge you, and like, You know, I really don't like speaking. I don't. I like afterwards when I'm done.
I like that wire. I like speaking, but the best part is that wire. But my
when I'm in
definition,
it, I like it. I'll say that. When I'm in it, I like it. But leading up to it, I don't like it.
So introvert means that you get recharged with energy when you're by yourself versus in crowds. That's what it means. So I love solitude time. And a lot of times, like if people visit me, they're like, there are no sounds at all in your house and you're just quiet. Is this what you do? Yes. Like I feel like time like that is bliss. And growing up, I didn't like going to parties or a place where there's more than 5 people. Like 5 to 8 people was like the best, right?
But what about the group of 30 you just mentioned?
So that was growing up. 30, that was like, I was like, oh, I upgraded in my 20s. You know what I mean? And now I'm at a point where like I can have fun like in large events and doing like huge concerts and all of that. But like that wasn't the case before. And so, and I'm not shy though. So a lot of people think that introverts have to be shy. I'm not shy. I'm not like terrified to do all these things. I just really enjoy being quiet.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll take, that's your I don't know if that's the real definition. Cause
it is the real definition.
I'm about to say, you know a lot of things, so it might be the real definition.
That's the real definition.
Okay. Because I feel like a lot of people get re-energized being by themselves, you know, like maybe it's like love languages where we all kind of like a little bit of all the love languages, but which one is your primary? So I don't know. I'll
words of affirmation.
Me too. That's fine. It is.
Oh, like I never meet anyone else with the words of affirmation as their first.
Know.
Oh, that's
mine. People like, oh, people can say whatever they want to say, but I want to see their actions. Like I get it. I want to hear it. You know, I want to hear it. Yeah, I want you to
tell me,
stuff, but I want to hear
text me.
Yes.
Yeah, give me all them words, all the DMs, all the texts, all the phone calls, all of them. I love it.
I like it too. That's my thing. And you know what? That's how you show love a lot of times too. And look, we just changed the subject, but that's okay.
Well, yeah, that's words of affirmation is it. Yeah, that's how I show love. And, you know, a lot of people don't subscribe to them, but if acts of service is your number one, and I've dated so many people that's their number one, and we break up because I'm a words of affirmation person, and their response is what you just said, like, it's only about action. Well, I'm working all day, but in these 2 minutes, I'm taking a break. I'm telling you, I'm thinking about you. You're on my mind and how much you mean to me, and then I'm back in.
Yeah,
but
I like
have time to do an act. You want to go to the store or something? No, that's what it is.
Yep. No, I agree. That's mine too.
Yeah.
That's mine too. So awesome. I think that we dropped a lot of gems today. Any final words before we wrap this episode?
I think that wherever you are, you can upgrade if you would like. And you could do that by letting go of the noise and looking within and figuring out what feels better for you. Does it feel better to work less or work more, to change your environment, to change your friends, to be by yourself, to be in groups, whatever it is? Like, you're worth it. You're worthy of your happiness and being the person you want to be regardless of the situation.
Awesome. And with that, we will wrap this episode. Thank you, Dr. Roshawnna Novellus. I am attorney Dayna Thomas, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.